both players at 10 and 1. Along with Anthony Stripcheck, they are in a tie for first place. Anthony has the pair down this round, playing against a 9 and 2 player. So this is table 1, and Aaron will start Pendelhaven onto Noble Hierarch.
Losing the die roll, not ideal against Infect. When they have the turn 1 Hierarch too, it makes it really easy to leverage their spells against your one-man interaction. Once you have that mana advantage, casting Blossoming Defense in response to a removal spell is pretty easy.
Faithless Looting comes out for Stempo. Now, Ryan, for the first game here, both players are on 6-card hands. Usually I like that for Infect.
I was actually going to go the other direction. Infect is the deck that's kind of taxed to have a specific mixture you want to have counterplay to your opponent's removal spells. A 6-card hand that just has 2 removal spells is going to be a pretty big ask for a 6-card hand against Infect to actually punch through. Infect does want your opponent to be resource light, but it also kind of needs to be resource heavy.
Sure. When you're a pump spell-based strategy, having 1 Might of Old Krosa, not so good. Having 2 Might of Old Krosas is excellent.
Right.
And speaking of damage, Aaron exalts in for 2 with Noble Hierarch, and that's going to be it. No Infectors in play just yet.
Yeah, second Hierarch it builds your battlefield, but you do want to win the game with the Infect. Theoretically, you can win it with regular damage. That's going to be particularly hard against a removal spell-heavy deck.
And talked about this being a key card to the matchup. Joseph on turn 2 is going to flash back a copy of Lingering Souls that he discarded off that first looting. 2 1/1 blockers will enter on in.
Once the Infect player has Noble Hierarch, the Lingering Souls do get a fair amount worse. Barich here with 2 Hierarchs on the table can punch through the Souls relatively easily.
And that's what he'll do, but I still think there's pressure on Aaron to... These threats aren't going to win the game. There's going to be pressure on him to produce a real threat. Stempo takes a hit. Mutagenic Growth was the draw for Aaron. He just passes the turn. Ryan, to me it looks like Aaron's hand has some awkwardness to it. I think he's drawn his second copy of Pendelhaven as well.
Yikes. And Pendelhaven does nothing on the 0/1 Noble Hierarchs.
This draws Distortion Strike. Yeah, there's second Pendelhaven, 2 Vines of Vastwood, Mutagenic Growth, Distortion Strike. It's an unplayable land and 3 pump spells, but none of the big pump spells.
Stempo is down to 14.
So, yeah, we can look at that.
And the Lingering Souls, the Distortion Strike is the card that punches through that very effectively. You do need to be mindful of Stempo having some kind of removal spell in response, but if you get enough interactive spells, pump spells in your hand, it gets very easy to fade Lightning Bolt, and there's fewer copies of Fatal Push in the Pyromancer deck, and if you have a Blossoming Defense, Vines of the Vastwood, you can get through that anyway. Right,
so Distortion Strike can push a Noble Hierarch through. It actually, and this is really, really cute, allows Aaron to use Pendelhaven.
Yeah, +1/+0, so it's a 1/1.
Yeah, it can start out on a Noble Hierarch.
It's pretty adorable.
Yeah.
I had not seen that interaction before.
Let's see if Aaron's going to go for it. I hope so. I think he's going to go for some regular damage. 1-0. See if he does the Pendelhaven trick. Come on, now it's a 1-1. Boo. Boo. And actually, if you counter Distortion Strike on the first resolution, it's a doubly good play here. Rebound's not going to happen.
Right. So the removal spell in response would stop both sides of this.
Yeah.
But I believe Barich is hanging out with the Vines of the Vastwood.
No, then we can't Pendelhaven it.
That is a bummer.
I wanted to see it. Yeah, you're right. Here is Fatal Push, and Aaron will kick Vines of Vastwood. So, basically gives the creature hexproof. Noble Hierarch up to a 4/5, now a 5/5. Now can exalt to a 7.
Ooh, and the second Pendelhaven.
Oh, he'll cast Groundswell. So 7/7, that's up to 11, 13. Joseph's at 13 because he cracked a fetch land.
Yikes.
Oh, huh.
You said this was a bad hand.
Huh.
That one Distortion Strike, it is so important in so many spots. You don't want to play too many copies, but you see right there, that's why you register the 1.
You know, I have something. I've never seen Distortion Strike rebound. Because that always happens.
Yeah, they just die.
They just die.
Yeah, there's not a +2/+0 version, though. So you just kind of have to play
I like
one.
how Aaron actually only had 13 points of pump, even if everything went right. And he's like, I need Joseph to crack this fetch land. Otherwise, I don't have him.
Yeah, you would have got him next turn.
Well played, Aaron Barich, up 1-0 here over Joseph Stempo. We're going to take a look at the sideboards when we come back in just a minute. back here. Game number 2, Aaron Barich, Xaxes. Mull to 6, regular damage kill with Noble Hierarchs. Love it.
The regular damage kills are definitely my favorite from the Infect deck.
Let's look at Joseph Stempo's sideboard. 3 copies of Leyline of the Void, 3 Molten Rain, 2 Engineer Explosives, 2 Wear Tear, 2 Cabal, an Anguished Unmaking, Hazaret, and Liliana of the Last Hope. There's a lot of different options for removal here, Ryan. What do you like?
Yeah, so you have a number of things that are pretty contextual, the Molten Rains and the Wear Tear. I think Molten Rain's a little bit slow to try to go for Inkmoth Nexus. Doesn't really play here. Wear Tear is another card that only deals with Nexus.
I'd rather go for Blood Moon to answer those.
Yeah, and you have those in the main deck, and that plays. And it's also good against this 2-color deck that doesn't play any basic islands. It's just a lot to like about Blood Moon. The card I really like in the sideboard is Liliana of the Last Hope.
Yeah.
Just picks apart every creature in Barich's deck.
How about this, Ryan? If you board in Cabal, those regular damage kills are never going to happen.
I guess
Imagine that last turn if there was a Cabal in play. Joseph would have been just fine.
Yeah, I guess.
You're off it?
I'm pretty not interested. Engineer Explosives is quite good in the matchup, though.
Now, speaking of regular damage, though, Aaron Barich, 4 copies of Geist of Saint Traft. If Aaron's on that plan, look, honestly, the Cabal wouldn't be bad, but that's a pretty weird sideboard.
Yeah, that's pretty rad. It's going to line up really well against these removal spell heavy decks. I also like the Shaper's Sanctuary in the sideboard for that
bet
reason.
Aaron's boarded in the Geists. Turn 1 Engineer Explosives for 1 on Joseph. Right, if they're in the deck list, this has got to be a matchup for them.
I would assume.
And Aaron sees an Engineer Explosives for 1, makes a 1-drop. Here's Glistener Elf.
Yeah, if it's only a 1-for-1, that's
fine.
totally fine.
What I do like about Engineer Explosives here is that it dodges cards like Vines of Vastwood.
What I don't like is I have a bingo square for Invention on the battlefield, and that's an Expedition.
Yeah. There's no Invention Engineered Explosives.
I believe you.
No, those are masterpieces, right? Wait.
They're all masterpieces.
Okay. Blighted Agent for Aaron.
Pretty reasonable chance that Stempo just sacrifices the explosives on end step here.
I wanted to spend my mana.
Yeah.
I get that maybe you could get more value out of these explosives, but against Infect, spend your mana.
Well, it's just you're not going to get more value. Barich knows what he's doing.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, and Engineer's Explosives on 1. Maybe he'll forget about it.
Maybe he'll make another Elf. Okay. And Aaron has made 3 Infectors. You see, Inkmoth Nexus was his second land there.
Especially once the Blighted Agent comes down, there's a good chance you're going to need to use some kind of removal spell on the Blighted Agent on this turn. So just pop the explosives now, use your mana. I like that a lot.
What's the card at the front of his hand? Is that Promo Fatal Push?
I think he's got that's final hand at the front. I could be wrong. I believe I saw a Colligan's Command in Stempo's hand. And
there is.
you do have to worry a little bit about mutagenic growth if that's your play. Though unless your hand is pretty flush, if you don't have a configuration where you can cast 2 reasonable spells on this turn, I can't imagine you're doing anything better than firing off Colligan's Command.
I always look at these hands against Infect, like Colligan's Command, and think, he's going to activate the Inkmoth. I'm going to shock the Blighted Agent, shatter the Inkmoth, it's going to be great. And it's like, there's just no way that's not happening.
You can try that play, and your reward is probably losing on the spot. Probably losing on the spot. Ooh, okay.
I like this more.
This
Liliana
one is
Last
better.
Hope.
I didn't see that one. Yeah, Liliana Last Hope. It's not going to check the Inkmoth Nexus, but it's going to check every other creature in Barich's deck.
And the thing is that Joseph has 1 poison. So an attack and 2 groundswell effects would kill him, but there's not really enough mana on Aaron's side. He would need mutagenic growths to make that happen. And so instead, it's Spellskite and Noble Hierarch, and Aaron will pass. He's got to play them both because that Hierarch protects spell.
You know what's
protected?
You know what's good on against these creatures?
Colligan's Command.
It's pretty good.
Well, if Joseph taps out to remove both these creatures, then a 4th land could kill him.
That's true. You do get to use the mode of discard a spell because the Last Hope will kill the Noble Hierarch.
So destroy target artifact, discard a card.
Right, and then you kind of gamble. Does Barich have enough leftovers?
Yeah, he would need a land 4 and 2 4-point pump spells. Mm-hmm. It's a lot to ask. It's not impossible. There is Become Immense we see at the front of Aaron's hand.
Yeah, that one does not need too much help to make a creature lethal.
In fact, it's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about it, though, is unless Stempo is able to cast 2 particularly good spells, which I actually, at this stage of the game, don't think Lightning Bolt is one, because of the Spellskite, certainly, but also just in general, once you get to this stage, even if you get the Spellskite off the battlefield, a pump spell in response to the Lightning Bolt makes it just no good. So you really want to have like a Fatal Push as the only real reasonable alternative to firing off something like Pull Against Command. I believe there's a young Pyromancer sitting at the front of Stempo's hand here. That plus Lightning Bolt right now could be reasonable. You see Liliana activated the Spellskite blocks, so now Joe has the option to finish off the Spellskite with Lightning Bolt.
Okay. Yeah, Pyromancer. Bolt makes a token. Lily pluses to shoot down the Spellskite, but this is a very dangerous spot for Stempo. He's liable to get killed by Inkmoth Nexus right now.
Yeah. And the reason to go for the Pyromancer over the Call Against Command on that turn is because you can start applying pressure on the way back. He had some things going on previously, but if you don't have a clock, you're not going to be able to close the game actually.
Well, right now, just Become Immense plus Noble Hierarch is
8 more points of poison?
Yep, though Barich, he'd need to be able to cast a few things first. Only 3 cards in the graveyard.
No poison at all, just makes Blighted Agent, says go. Liliana the Last Hope goes for Blighted Agent. Aaron, and this is a win regardless. Aaron will Blossoming Defense it.
The way Barich played the last turn tells you a lot about what's going on in his hand.
He's setting up for 1 more turn to try.
He left up 2 lands instead of getting in a chip shot when it was good with the Inkmoth Nexus.
right.
So that means he probably has 2 points of interaction here. Stempo's window is reasonable. You have this free Liliana activation. Then you can Call Against Command in response to the first pump spell. Barich likely has a second.
Yeah, and I like this. Deal 2 damage and discard. Call Against Command in response was the choice for Stempo.
Yeah, and because it's Call Against Command, that's going to just knock Barich out.
Yeah,
he probably is going to let this go and discard and try to leverage the Becoming Immense on the Inkmoth Nexus.
Well, if he protects his creature, he loses his whole hand.
Yeah.
So you see he loses the Blighted Agent, loses the Groundswell. His last card is Become Immense. But he is a point of poison short right now. He's got 1 from Inkmoth. Exalted makes 2. Become Immense makes 8, but he needs 9.
And the way that played out, had Barich gone in for that chip shot, if the play patterns happened the same way on Stempo's turn, he would have had lethal this turn.
Yeah, hard to say, certainly. But I think you're right. There's going to be a punish here. He activates Inkmoth. He's going to Become Immense it. This will get Joseph to 9 poison, but the 10th poison looks like it's going to be a check. Aaron doesn't have protection from any removal anymore.
Right. So, Stempo down to 3 cards in hand. He's been taking some time thinking about his turns. They've involved casting 3-mana spells. A lot of that's not very good against the Inkmoth Nexus in the first place, and then a top deck can blank something like that as well.
Like Aaron reaches over, adjusts his poison to 9, says, oh yeah, get it out. Lingering Souls.
That one's really good.
We're looking now for Distortion Strike or Apostle's Blessing on Aaron's side, and that's about it.
Yep. 1 copy of each.
And you see him as he fans through there. He has left in Apostle's Blessing for sure. Fetchland finds Dryad Arbor. I'm going to check that off.
Bingo square there. That blocked the young Pyromancer.
I got a 4 in a row, Ryan. This is the week.
Well, I got bad news for you.
Did you already win?
No, but your 4 square is... Well, you might see Inventor's Fair in Standard. I don't think you're going to.
Attacking creature gets exalted. I got that. Inventor's Fair gains a life? Yes, probably not in Standard.
Technically Standard legal.
My best it's Lantern and KCI in Modern. One of the top 8 decks needs to be those.
Right, it would have to be the top 8, yeah.
Okay. -2 from Joseph. Finds the young Pyromancer. He's got Aaron to 8. He's at 9 poison.
Yeah. Barich's drawing to just such a small number of outs in the deck because of those Lingering Souls. Typically, you'd have a potential run of draws that involve Blighted Agent, but the Liliana the Last Hope checks that very effectively.
Draft number 5, Wesley Shaw, Michael Bischoff, please come to the stage so we can begin your event.
The way it's set up right now, Stempo has just a 2-turn clock on the battlefield. You have 3 elementals, 2 spirits. Gets the player at 8. You want to make sure you leave enough spirits back, though you generally wouldn't expect a removal spell. It's possible that Barich has a Dismember, but it's very unlikely, and your attacks, Barich doesn't have any black mana. He won't be able to pay the life. I wouldn't really expect a gut shot or anything like that.
More souls for Stempo. They don't. That's not going to make a huge difference. Fetches down to 13. Aaron's just on those few outs.
And it looks like Stempo does have some kind of follow-up, but he doesn't need it. He's already winning the game, and Barich doesn't need to see it.
Yeah, picks up the cards. So we are going to go to a third game between the two. We looked at some of Joseph Stempo's options during the last round. Now, Aaron is going to have some sideboarding of his own to do. We'll look at Aaron's sideboard and talk about how we can bounce back for the third game. Back here for game number 3. Winner of this will enter our final standard leg of the day, 11-1. 3 players tied for first right now. It's Joseph Stempo, Aaron Barich, and Anthony Stripchek. So Anthony win last round over Austin Collins, but Aaron's trying to keep pace here. He'll be on the play for the third game. Ryan, it does not look like he's gone for his 4 Geist to St. Traft in this matchup.
Yeah, that was a card that we talked about going into game 2. It is a lot easier to leverage on the play, particularly your Noble Hierarch deck. You can play that turn 2 unchecked. Any pump spell allows you to attack pretty freely into Lingering Souls. The Mardu Pyromancer deck does generate a reasonable amount of blockers, and when we're talking about Geist of St. Traft, then Young Pyromancer actually becomes a problem, whereas for most of your threats, it's typically just Lingering Souls you really have to worry about. It can have some bad games, but Stempo is really heavy on 1-mana spells and high-impact 3-mana spells. We saw in Game 2, Liliana the Last Hope, Kolaghan's Command be very effective, and that stuff just doesn't play against Geist.
Okay, so you think on the play we might go for that?
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see it. This is definitely the kind of matchup where you reach for threats like that.
Turn 1, we have a Shaper's Sanctuary from Aaron Barich. Not a creature here.
And for Stempo, interacting with that is Engineered Explosives or Bust.
Yeah, this card's very powerful in the matchup.
He could have his sideboard Wear Tears in, I suppose. Yeah. Whenever a creature you control is target a spell of ability, an opponent controls, you draw a card. So it doesn't work with your pump spells, but it does certainly more than enough. Every time I've played against an Infect player with this, playing Grixis, though, I tend to have drawn explosives.
Thoughtseize here from Stempo. We see a second Shaper. Is that second Shaper Sanctuary? I think it is.
It looks a lot like it. That's not a great one to have.
Glistener Elf, Dryad Arbor, 2 more lands. He'll take the Glistener Elf. Going to leave Aaron with a bunch of Shaper Sanctuaries.
It's not a great hand, though. He at least gets to cast second Sanctuary, play Dryad Arbor this turn.
I was just going to say, what if he draws Geist to St. Traft with these 2 Sanctuaries?
That's not really a combination.
He just did.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Whenever Joseph targets Geist to St. Traft, Aaron will draw 2 cards.
I would be very frustrated if I was a judge and I took that
Once
call.
Joseph makes a glaring spotlight and then goes for the kill spell, Aaron will draw 2 cards.
That's some powerful magic.
It's just Aaron's next leveling here.
That's probably not it. Yeah, the thing is, he had a Glistener Elf. It played well with these cards, but the draw is just not shaping up.
I love this card. See, it definitely tells you how you're supposed to play it. You know that friend of yours who has that Boggles deck? Right here. That's where the Boggle is. He's right there.
Hexproof is among my least favorite both mechanics and design decisions in Magic, and I still hate Glaring Spotlight.
Look. You just shine the light. Now, here's Geist to St. Traft. Yeah, so the board is Geist to St. Traft, 2 Shapers, Sanctuaries, played perfectly. But at the same time, it might work. I mean, if you can't answer the Geist, it's fine that Aaron has a bunch of cards that don't do anything.
Yeah, and if you get some blockers in place, then Barich maybe draws an Infector and the Sanctuaries do something.
Joseph, whatever Joseph do, that Angel token's getting in for 4. You're not going to Fatal Push the Angel token.
Can block it with the Spirit.
Yeah, but sometimes you do see players do things like that.
Yeah.
And Joseph, this is a play-draw thing, has a Blood Moon in hand. Would have been fantastic on the play. Aaron, I don't think can make Geist to St. Traft under Blood Moon. No, he has just his basic forests.
Yeah, he can't produce either of the appropriate colors. And Barich has produced a basic forest, so even through a Blood Moon, he can play some pump spells on the Geist.
Lingering Souls for Stempo. That's a great way to answer Geist to St. Traft. Blossoming Defense, the draw for Barich. However,
it gives him 1 attack into half of a Lingering Souls.
You'll attack. Make an Angel token. Here's 6 damage in. Pretty appealing double block for Stempo.
At this point, pretty unlikely to just die on this turn, and I think he still knows that Barich at least has that Dryad Arbor in hand, so it can at most be 2 pump spells from 6. I guess it could be a +4 into Blossoming Defense. He seems to have the resources for that. But it's still, at this juncture, just makes a lot of sense to go for the double block on the Geist.
Yeah, the only way, so taking 6, the only way you could take 10 more is if there was a 4 and a Blossoming and a Become Immense.
Right. No blocks just doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
Splitting the blocker is also not really too sensical because there's no combination that just makes the Angel lethal.
You want to just, so the question is, you either put 2 spirits on the Geist or 1 spirit on the Angel?
Right. Pretty sure 2 spirits on the Geist makes the most sense. No blocks is an option, and then on the following turn, you're going to have even more blockers, just shove a bunch of stuff in front of the Geist. Though I think that just works out worse than trying to double block it on consecutive turns.
He'll go with a double block on the Geist. This should force a pump self from Aaron, and it does. Blossoming Defense. Stempo takes 4, drops down to 12. And there's the Dryad Arbor from Barich. First creature that these Shaper Sanctuaries are going to care about.
And you see really in this game, things aren't shaping up ideally for Barich. He continues to have this Sanctuary Geist non-combination going for him. But the reason you have Geist on the sideboard is it does so much heavy lifting just as a singular card. So on this turn, Stempo has the option. He can flash back the Lingering Souls, represent that double block again on the following turn. He could go for this Blood Moon. It would make Barich's mana worse.
Yeah.
That does not seem particularly appealing to me, though.
I don't mind the Blood Moon at some point here. It feels early.
Yeah.
If you could say Flashback Souls and make Blood Moon this turn, Blood Moon would sound great.
The thing about it, too, is that the double block on the Lingering Souls gets a lot worse going forward. If the Geist comes in on this turn, you try the double block, it doesn't work, an Angel connects for 4, and you're in territory where a lot of just 1 card plus Angel becomes lethal on you.
Right.
So it's a lot harder to navigate those games.
Aaron, back to an attack. It's Geist to St. Traft. He held back Dryad Arbor and was wondering if that would swing, but it does not. It's a double block from Stempo, and it'll be Vines of Vastwood for 2 mana from Barich. 4 more damage, Stempo's down to 8. And maybe these Angel tokens will do it on their own.
Yeah, there's Blighted Agent follow-up. That one's a ways away from closing with poison, though if that becomes what the game is about, the double Shaper Sanctuary really makes that plan very robust. Currently, the Shaper Sanctuaries have been a double mulligan the entire game.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to draw any cards. It actually isn't terrible because now Joseph's in the difficult position that if he answers Geist of St. Traft, then he has to deal with these leftover threats, and because he's at a low life total in the Shaper Sanctuaries, it's not clear if he can do that.
Yeah. We're on Barich's end step, Stempo with the Sacred Foundry untapped. He has a Lightning Bolt towards the front of his hand. I'm not too interested in bolting the Blighted Agent.
How about bolting Aaron?
From 16?
I don't want to bolt his creatures.
Putting it in the graveyard can matter for the Pyromancer deck because you're discounting your Bedlam Reveler going down the line.
I just don't want to point it anywhere else, ever. So is that too wild to suggest that he might throw it upstairs?
Yeah, you can't take that mana with you.
It's a weird play for sure.
He's quite a ways off a Bedlam Reveler. Currently just Thoughtseize in the graveyard.
Yeah. And Joseph ends up taking what I think is the most consistent line, which is just to wait and see. Draws Young Pyromancer for the turn.
And that does reward you a little bit for hanging on to the Lightning Bolt.
It really does. Pyromancer, another possible blocker for Geist of St. Traft. He can keep blocking it. What's actually going to become an issue are these 4/4 Angels. He's gone from 16 to 8 off them already. 2 more hits will kill him.
Yeah, the Angel's a problem, and then if Stempo stabilizes the battlefield, he does need to inevitably point something at the Blighted Agent. Barich gets to draw 2 cards. It becomes easier to rebuild from there.
And the big cost here, Ryan, Joseph goes to 6 on his mana that turn.
Imagine you'll see Young Pyromancer coming down this turn. Depending on how combat shapes up, if Barich does anything pre-combat, very likely you see like Lightning Bolt go upstairs.
Kolaghan's Command in Aaron's draw step. Not bad.
Yeah, that was quite a bit better than just playing the Lightning Bolts. And Barich drew kind of a bad one. It was Relic of Regenerators, but you don't know that.
And you see that burn plan is online. The mode he chose was 2 damage to Aaron, and Aaron discards a card. All creatures are safe. So Aaron just swings in with Blighted Agent. It's only 1 poison. Passes back. See how many times in a row Joseph can make that play.
Something that the Blood Moon does do on this battlefield, it turns off Kicked Vines of Vastwood as a draw for Barich because he just has single green. Stempo's been holding on to that Blood Moon for a while. Now he has a good amount of mana to work with. Outside of that Lightning Bolt, I don't know how much else he really has that he can commit.
Liliana, the last hope. Joseph's clawing back. -2. Is there a creature in the graveyard? There is not. And these Shaper Sanctuaries now, despite the fact they haven't drawn cards, they've done a lot of work. We've seen a Kolaghan's Command sent upstairs and a Liliana, the last hope that's not shooting a creature. And all that's because of the Sanctuaries.
Right. Yeah, they haven't done much. They've looked pretty bad, but they have allowed it so if things go wrong, Barich has that route.
Ryan,
to get back
we might
in.
just have seen the end of the game. Distortion Strike off the top for Barich. Joseph left Aaron with that blue mana, and he's paying the price for it. Here's 3 unblockable and 4 in the air.
Yeah, and those Spirit Tokens, they're not around anymore. There's no blockers for any of this.
Joseph's got to have something.
Got to have a Fatal Push for the Angel, but even that doesn't feel good. And then the Distortion Strike just gets you on the way back. The Geist comes in for 3 again next turn.
Well, he bolts the Dryad Arbor, but this doesn't matter yet. He's going to be... Yeah, he's got nothing, and there's the extension of the hand. Aaron Barich on Infect is going to take it 2 games to 1. That Geist of St. Traft out of the sideboard, a 4 of in his Infect deck, caught Joseph off guard, and Aaron